This will be the greatest basketball event of all time.
Toughest Olympic field ever.
And this,
Steph Curry, LeBron James,
is the most talented basketball team of all time.
Some all-time legends.
But I want to show you something. I want to show you how odds makers and analysts...
We're going to roll this year, there's no doubt.
USA is going to roll everyone.
And I think we'll kind of roll.
And look,
roll.
are looking at this wrong.
Just how this team
Best team by far.
might be overrated.
By now, we are all aware that basketball has become a global game.
But as teams gather in Paris, there's one team that still stands above the rest.
After a disappointing FIBA World Cup run and a runner running his mouth,
World champion of what?
the U.S. collectively sang,
We need more nukes!
no LeBron, no KD, no Steph, no Derek White, no Booker, Bam, Tatum, or Davis. We need more weapons.
Nukes!
And French nukes that are now U.S. citizens.
All right.
Team USA, WPMs, the Avengers, but we need to clear something up because when I say the most talented ever, there's a few folks in the back that say,
What about 92?
the Dream Team?
There's a bit of basketball nirvana to this because it's the most star power we've seen since, well, these guys. But we need to dispense of this comparison real quick. Looking at the 2024 roster, there is not a single player you could leave open at 3. There were 7 on the Dream Team. 7. 7 of these guys you could dare to shoot. In fact, if you left them open at 17 feet, they probably wouldn't even shoot from there. I get that it's easy to romanticize about the past, but
they don't have
Original 23.
Michael Jordan.
I'm not sure why this delusion is so powerful in the game of basketball. You don't see it with baseball and football as much. Maybe because the measurables are that much more obvious. For example, 30 years ago, we didn't have a single guy running a sub 4.4 at the combine. Today we have 20. That does not mean that this Dream Team was not historic or generational, but you cannot seriously argue that they would beat today's team. On paper, analysts and odds makers have them as massive favorites. Just take a look at this. Minus 500 right now. Now they should be heavy favorites. They're clearly the best team. But that's like saying there's an 83% chance they will win all 3 knockout games. For reference, there has never been an NBA playoff team that has come into the NBA playoffs with those odds. The 72-10 Bulls did not see those odds. The 73-9 Warriors were not as heavy of a favorite.
I finally have a super team I can root for. My poverty franchise, Blazers 60, is just background noise for a few weeks. God bless the US of A. However, there's something that doesn't sit well with me. I did a video on the vulnerability of the Americans last year despite being far more talented than any other team at the FIBA World Cup. They failed to medal there. In these Olympics, I am seeing the same vulnerability and delusion.
Throw it all down. I don't care what the odds
The
is.
Americans got far more talent, more than any other team before, but I still think they might be overrated.
We need more nukes!
Let's start with the fundamentals. Welcome to the 2024 Basketball Rules Conference. Welcome. Presented by DraftKings. Oh, God. All right, so now we have all heard many different analysts talk about these rule differences.
Is way different.
But today, when you leave this seminar, I want to make sure that you feel confident with your hateful keystrokes as you correct humanity. Now, there are 2 major rule systems, the American or NBA rule system and the FIBA rule system. There are differences. The first difference that many might point to, a smaller court. Now, you might notice the metric system down here. We will not be using that because you cannot measure freedom in meters. Communists. The American court is bigger because we're better. We're better. The three-point line is also about 1.5 feet closer. Now, some Americans might point to these rule differences as a scapegoat for our patriots, but let's discuss why that would be such a major misunderstanding. An NBA half court is only about 1 foot longer and just a few inches wider. This is the same half court where the U.S. markedly struggles to score at times despite fielding weapons of mass offensive destruction. Regarding the closer three-point line, despite what you might hear from some folks, rest assured knowing that both teams get to enjoy it. And that might be surprising. But what's more surprising is the rate at which three-point accuracy declines as we move back, or rather, the rate at which it doesn't. Just a few feet might not even be 1%. We can see in the mid-range here, there's really not much of a drop at all.
Look at this shot.
A shorter three-point line does give a slight advantage to shooters in international play, but furthermore, it also packs everything in a little bit more because players tend to toe the line. But more importantly, it increases something that we'll touch on later. Now, let's jump into our DraftKings sponsored segment, officiating. I was whistled for about 4 travels in my first international game. Similar to our boy DeAndre here, who's a little upset. In FIBA, you got to make sure you throw that ball down when you catch it. It's unlike the NBA where you can kind of, well. Now, how is FIBA measurably different from a foul standpoint? Well, fairly quickly, you can see that guys are given more leniency with things like hand checking. They aren't as limited as they are in the NBA. And if I was advising Team USA, there's absolutely no reason they shouldn't be pressuring more from the full court. With guys like Drew Holiday, the depth that they have, the athleticism that they have in comparison to these teams, there's no reason why they shouldn't be pressuring more if this hand checking is a little bit more lenient. Now, what is the single biggest rule difference as far as FIBA compared to the NBA? There is no 3 in the key. And that means bigs are big. A guy like Rudy Gobert is probably top 40 in terms of value in the NBA. But in FIBA, he's arguably top 5 to 10 because he can just stand in the key and be long and tall, not have to worry about 3 in the key, knock balls off of the rim because of the goaltending rule difference. Players are valued differently, especially bigs. Other players and positions also see their valuation change. For example, Sasha Vezenkov, the former EuroLeague MVP. In the FIBA rule system, he's kind of a magician, moving without the ball better than probably just about anyone you'd see in the NBA. But in the NBA rule system, he struggled to break the rotation. Why? Well, obviously there's a lot more talent in the NBA for one, but he also just isn't built for the NBA. He had a game in the EuroLeague where he scored 24 points without taking a single dribble.
Delightful.
He's not a guy that will just go break somebody down in space. He kind of needs sets and plays where he can make reads and cuts, and let's face it, there's not a lot of that in the NBA. And additionally, his defensive inefficiencies are more pronounced because he doesn't just have a 7-footer backing him up if somebody gets by him. He's more on an island in the NBA, where athleticism and length, as far as value metrics, are more important. It's also why you might see the most talented team ever struggle to score at times. That is, if they play a more heliocentric styled offense, because what's the elixir for a big goofy Frenchman who no one respects but is still 7'1" and pretty long? Quick passing and ball movement. And how did the Americans do with this in the last international tournament? Team USA had the least amount of passes in the entire tournament. I tested this, and the ball is still fast, at least faster than a human. Additionally, they failed to reverse the ball much, reversal being a key progression to breaking down a defense in the half court. Team USA reversed the ball 25 times, while the Lithuanians reversed it 55 times, more than double the United States. Just take a look at these efficiencies as they reverse the ball. This was a Lithuanian team with one NBA player that beat them. The same held true with the Germans, who reversed the ball 76 times in the half court, while Team USA only reversed it 39 times. Of course, what was the quick excuse we all heard?
You're right, Key. We do have the best players, and they did not play.
Eventually, we gonna get our horses.
It's because Josh Hart's on the team, but they're not
I'm
the
not
best
even
players
talking
we
about.
have.
While this is obviously true, most of the world's superstars did not play in the World Cup either, and it could be argued that Brunson, Edwards, and Halliburton are three of the top American players now. The Americans were significantly more talented, and they lost 3 times. That World Cup team was still playing NBA basketball, and if this Olympic team falls into the same issues, it absolutely increases the odds of an upset. In the first few exhibition games, we saw some of this. Against Canada, they barely scratched a point per possession. The lack of offensive continuity was understandable, as it was their first game. That did not stop folks from jumping to hard takes.
Where should our level of concern be?
And then doubling down on those takes as they barely outshot a talented Australian team.
Yeah, I have some concerns still.
Then, completely reversing those takes as they dogpiled Serbia.
This over. We looking at one of the greatest teams ever assembled.
This is the 24-hour news cycle. Never mind that Serbia's second, third, and fourth best players did not play, and that Serbia was on the second game of a back-to-back, and that lopsided victories are a large part of any professional basketball system now. Just take a look at the past playoffs. It's how the Celtics lost by 38, then won by 18 one game later. No, forget all that, because we're America, we freaking roll.
Now, let me be clear here. I still think the Americans should be favorites, heavy favorites. I just don't think they should be minus 500 colossal favorites. There is a significant chance with this format and an improved global force that they will be competing against that they could drop at least one game. They're not a team that is completely unbeatable.
At a time where the NBA playoffs seem dim, the world stage is shining. Players fighting for their country, single elimination knockout rounds, and with 3-point variance swinging games and causing upsets more than ever before, these Olympics will seem fairly unpredictable at times. And that is awesome.
This is the most excited I have been for a basketball event in a long time, if you can't already tell. But in writing this, it forced me to rethink a question I thought I already knew, and that is, what exactly is a good basketball player? If seemingly small rule changes can make big differences as far as player valuations, it does force you to rethink that question. And additionally, basketball is weird. You can't just add up the individual talent levels and say they're going to win by 40 because they're the Avengers. Both things can be true here. This is the most talented basketball team of all time, but additionally, they might be overrated. The international competition is better, the international system is different, and because of that, there's still a chance that they could fall. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and take care.